Here's chapter 26 of The Wrong 10 Seconds. We're now in the final chapters, and this is Lydia's last bit, so we'll find how she starts putting her life together. We pick up as the Rain and Phoebe arrive right from the last chapter. Chapter 26, Lydia, Friday and Saturday. Listen. Lydia turned from Phoebe as a deluge of rain sounded against the front door. She dashed into the bedroom and threw back the curtains to check the cracked window wasn't leaking. "Never been happier to see rain in my life," the girl said, winding a strand of hair about her finger. "It's going to be better now. You know what I said about getting older and having more choices? You've already made some, ditching Shiana and finding new ways to use your photos." "But aren't you angry at me for all I did?" Lydia shook her head. Charged by Phoebe's version of events, her imagination fizzed with alternative endings. How it all could have transpired if Paul had found out about Charlie without the affair being exposed first. He'd ring her up, warn her Charlie was in trouble, promise to help. He'd still be seizing her hand every chance he got, his eyes earnest and happiness sparking at the sight of her face enough to set alight her own grin. She allowed herself these memories and fantasies now because he hadn't chosen to forsake her, he'd been forced. Still, the relief in place of that awful, piercing rejection was bound by a constriction in her ribs, a vague percussing at the back of her head like a piano key tapped again and again, the incessant pulse of fear for Paul, his job, his happiness. He must feel so alone. But who would blame Phoebe? The wide eyes, ever-present hoodie, and twitchy movements, anxiety pounded in her much louder than a piano, loud enough so Lydia could almost hear it. "You did it out of hurt. Same reason my father went mad and untied that dog. And now Shiana's hurt." Phoebe looked at her trainers, not sure what she'll do to me next. "Just don't go back there. And do you need Facebook? I don't think I would have survived secondary school if it was so widespread then." Lydia led her back to the lounge. "But school starts in 2 weeks. GCSEs, right? I take it you've chosen more art lessons. Shiana won't be in those, will she?" Lydia stopped at the door to the garden. Her father swung Harriet's chair in circles, whooping, and Harriet's eyes were closed in ecstasy, streams running from her hair. Lydia wouldn't let any Robbins Hill residents out in the rain, not on her watch, but this must be the most adventurous thing her mother had done in a long while. "Quick, get a photo," Lydia whispered to Phoebe. "If you want to know the point of art, they're it." It seemed beyond Lydia's doodling capacity. Phoebe crouched and snapped a picture. This is well strange. I mean, not bad, but strange. "Come on, you two wild things," Lydia called to her parents. "You promised everyone food, didn't you?" They ate dessert around the table, Charlie and Harriet draped in towels. Phoebe's eyes darted busily as she took tiny spoonfuls of rhubarb fool, making it last. Riddle scoffed his because his radio blared about a domestic dispute across town. "No one you know," he reassured them, and Lydia coloured. He'd read her mind. How had Paul's wife allowed him to live this long? "I'll drop you off along the way," Riddle told Phoebe. Lydia saw the girl's face fall, and her hand twitched toward her phone as if to check for threatening texts. "What's wrong?" "My parents aren't home yet. I'll be on my own," she mumbled into her hoodie cuffs. "You live near me, don't you? I could take you home later." Phoebe settled on the sofa, fiddling with her mobile, knees to her chest, while Lydia helped get her mother into dry clothes and then early to bed. "The rest will help her heal. Couldn't you do with catching up on sleep yourself?" Charlie stroked Harriet's hair, remarking absently, "I should make phone calls about that window. Check in with your grandmother before she storms over here. There's ironing." "Sleep first, Daddy, please, for me." She left them to rest and met Phoebe in the lounge. "I killed my Facebook." Phoebe's eyes sparkled, now more sea green than grey. "You're going to, right?" "Gosh, you work fast." What if Paul tried to message her? "I'm not completely sure." "You should." Phoebe hopped off the couch. "Are your parents okay?" "They need to rest. My dad gets manic, trying to please everybody. Mum used to make him catch his breath now and then, but, well, you see." "I think I get sort of manic sometimes too." Phoebe snickered behind a giddy hand. "She's so pretty, though, your mother." "I know." Lydia patted her hair back. Its muddy brown lacked the jet black depths of Harriet's hair, and Lydia's face had never reached the dizzying heights of her mother's cheekbones. But Paul had loved running his fingers through Lydia's hair, and he'd kissed her face many times over. "Want to stop by my flat? You can meet Slim Shady." The girl didn't seem familiar with the reference in the cat's name, but she came along to Lydia's fiesta. Mabel. Lydia introduced her to the car, throwing discarded uniforms, a Kate Atkinson novel, and a burrito wrapper off the front seat. Sorry, she's a slob. It's her personality, not me. Phoebe sat primly in the front passenger seat and surveyed the interior. Then she relaxed into the tufted black fabric. I want a car like this when I'm older, if I'm brave enough to drive. Whoa now, better keep those lofty ambitions in check. Lydia untangled a cardigan from the handbrake. No, really, Phoebe laughed. This car is full of what you like to eat and read and wear. I want to have places full of my own choices. That's a nice way to look at it. Lydia started the car, and Blink 182's music leapt from the stereo. Phoebe squeaked and huddled back in her seat. Sorry. Lydia turned off the sound system. It's not your fault. I'm weird. I hate loud noises. I have this idea they'll hurt. I mean, it's more than idea. I know it, even though I also know it's not true. It's funny how we can be like that about things, isn't it? Lydia drove down the ring road. People scurried past under their umbrellas, looking miserable as if they'd already forgotten how the heat had stifled them. I used to get ear infections when I was little. Phoebe curled her fingers around the door handle. Doctors poked at my ears and it hurt so much I got, well protective about it. Fair enough. For me, music makes everything more bearable. That's why I like art, Phoebe said. Except I'm not sure it always makes things better. Creative endeavours are tricky that way. Lydia stopped at a zebra crossing for a troop of boys on scooters, completely undeterred by the rain. We have to know how much real to put into music or art, whether to channel our feelings or distract from them. Plus, added Phoebe, I don't know what to do with the real stuff once I've recorded it. Lydia parked the car. Come on, if you like my messy car, you'll love my flat. The rain had settled to a fine mist like sea spray. Inside, the stairwell smelled of late post-hangover fry-up from the ground floor flat. The ceiling light bulb buzzed in irritation at the damp. In her apartment, Lydia dropped her uniforms to pick Slim Shady up, and he put his front paws over her shoulder so he could maintain surveillance behind her back. What are those? Phoebe pointed at the uniforms. My scrubs from work. I'm a nurse at a care home. Her nose crinkled. Why did you choose that? I guess I thought it would help me feel I was worth something, doing good in the world. The same reason Constance did it. Selfishness, basically. Are the people nice? Do they die a lot? I mean, only one each time, but, you know. A lot of them are nice. We have maybe a couple deaths per month, but the ones I'm closest to seem fairly healthy. Is your mum going to live a long time, or is that why you wanted the picture? If my experience is anything to go by, she might. Lydia cleared some books from her sofa, cat hair woven into its fabric, and sat down, Slim Shady prowling around her. My dad and I will make sure she enjoys it somehow. That's why I needed a picture, to remind us there's still quality of life to be had. Phoebe found a sketch on top of Lydia's filing cabinet. This is good. It looks like him. His eyes are loads nicer than Shiana's, and his voice. Don't you wish we could draw voices? Oh, Lydia blushed. She'd sketched Paul's face the other night. She couldn't help herself, although she hadn't been content with the results. Yes, I do. But Phoebe was already moving on. She'd clearly never been in love. Lydia fielded an interview on the sweet wrappers she kept on her wall, a faded, crinkled patchwork of waxy paper and shiny foil from treats transatlantic guests had given her as a child. Then there were the assorted soft toys Alfie brought her, including a giant stuffed banana in pajamas that had taken up almost his entire suitcase. Phoebe flapped the banana's velvety nightcap. Is it nice in America, or are people really loud? Am I annoying you? Yes, sometimes nice. Yes, frequently loud. And no, you're not annoying me at all. I asked too many stupid questions. Life would be boring if we hung out with people who had no questions. Silly, personal questions had kept Paul and herself constantly fascinated by each other. You can come round as often and ask as many questions as you like. So Phoebe turned up the next day. When Lydia got back from her run in the continuing rain, Phoebe waited for her, chewing her hoodie string and jiggling in her trainers, sketchbook under her arm. They sketched all morning, then drove to Charlie's bungalow for the afternoon. Is it really all right? He asked Lydia while they tended to Harriet's catheter bag in the wet room, and Phoebe curled up on the settee to draw some more. Entertaining a minor, what will people say? Lydia adjusted her mother's headrest. I don't know that I care anymore, Dad. She's going where she feels safe. Who has the right to judge that? No matter what we do, we risk people saying something bad, don't we? Look what happened to you. You were always so good, and then after making one mistake. Huh, Harriet remarked, as if to say, it's about time you noticed. Both she and Charlie still seemed subdued. He needed to get busy again, in a less frantic way, and then Harriet wouldn't have to worry about him so much. Your garden must be doing well in this rain, Lydia said. You'll need to make some pickles and chutney soon, won't you? I suppose. He sanitized his hands absently. Lydia seized his arm. Your hands are clean already. You know that crap is full of chemicals worse than bacteria, right? Let it go. There are no charges against you. You can start over. Start over with what? I seem to have ruined all my chances. His voice was whisper thin. Anything. Anything you enjoy and everything you love. Look, this is why I like having Phoebe around. She's so inquisitive. She fires up ideas I would have given up years ago. You and Mum need that as well. They needed support from the carers group again. Surely other people in her parents' difficult straits occasionally lashed out as Charlie had done. He'd just stumbled on a more noticeable and unfashionable way to do it. During a rousing game of Pictionary, work rang Lydia to cover for a nurse going home to a sick child. Along the way, she dropped off Phoebe, who hadn't stopped giggling over Charlie's drawing of a one-trick pony. How's everyone at home? Anna asked as Lydia leafed through the care plans. Getting better, maybe, slowly. How are all of you? Fine. We heard from the police last night. They have a witness to that bus stop attack. Lydia smiled over Alice's feeding chart. I heard about that. My sources say there was clear evidence of bravery and eloquence on your part. Damn straight. Anna grinned. Matt emerged from the sluice room. Main thing today is Lavender's family. They're holding vigil as her health declines and require endless cups of tea. They objected to Anna singing with Ronald while she showered him. Uncultured pricks, Anna commented, without relinquishing her smile, swaying to unheard music. And then they complained about Alice shouting. You know how she does in her sleep. Half sleep, really. Anna nodded. You should have heard when the other nurse asked her to quiet down. Alice said she doesn't take orders from anyone but the director, and then said, maybe if the other blue lady asks. Probably the real reason the other nurse gave up, being told off by a bedridden 80-something-year-old. Matt studied some fresh scratches on his forearm, the telltale work of Betty. Also, Mr. Harrow had pressure sores from his chair, so he's in bed today. We've been turning him every 2 hours, and it's getting better. The pressure sores, that is, not the seeing him every 2 hours. The call bell sounded, and Anna started for the monitor on the wall. Lavender's family, no doubt. Oh, and Mrs. Jocelyn. Matt straightened. Guess that's us both off, then. Lydia stood. I'll check on Mr. Harrow. What, on your own? Without bringing a nuclear deterrent? I've been through worse. Lydia hastened down the corridor, wishing it were Wednesday, wishing it were 2 weeks ago, or a month back. She'd give almost anything. She halted in Eddie Harrow's doorway. Paul was there, the quiet strength of him, leaning against the window while his father scowled at the newspaper propped up on pillows in bed. Paul turned around. You're here. I am, and you. Sorry. After all, she wasn't scheduled to be. He winced. No, don't. But you didn't want... You're not supposed to... Christ's sakes, bellowed Eddie, rattling his paper in each of their directions. Your conversation was dull enough before, boy. What is this horse shit? You know I'm not good at chatting about cider and bookie odds, Paul snapped, in a rare show of impatience. Since you find our presence annoying, the nurse and I will speak elsewhere for a moment. They stood at the end of the corridor. He faced the hallway as if prepared to run, and she angled herself toward the rain-speckled window. It had been madness to believe Phoebe. This man clearly wanted nothing to do with Lydia. It was almost as if he never had. Are you all right? Well, you know. His words were clipped. How are your family? Mum got sick. Dad's been struggling. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. But he shook his head, wagging away her apologies again. What good was that if he wouldn't fold her in his arms or call her his angel? Phoebe tells me you're trying to help. I'm so grateful. She frowned as he twitched a dismissing hand at her. Paul, I wouldn't go breaking your door down, but I'm in front of you now. You might as well talk to me. He dug his hands into the pockets of his woodshop dusted trousers. I told her it was the nursing home. She had this photo. She thought you must be from the college, so I panicked and said no, from here. She smashed my phone. He paused for a deep, desperate breath, his eyes on the wall monitor as it beeped again. And she makes sure you only come when I'm not here. It was more my choice. Knowing if I saw you, the longing would kill me. Lydia barely stopped herself from rushing to him. We could still see each other, just sometimes, like this. No, he croaked, looking fully at her now. I have to be better. And you should find someone better for yourself. But you are better, and better than her. You know I'm not. About your father. He brought it up shyly, as if he'd been in the wrong. We need a part-time food skills instructor at school. He could try it. Ah, but the college being such a great moral arbiter. They like our sex lives tidy. Following local press and social media, though, is an entirely different matter. The Catholic Church for you. I'll mention it to him. It's kind of you. Not that I should have expected anything else. Her laugh came out brittle. I'm just so sorry it all happened. He paused. The bit with your dad, I mean. Yes. I'm not remorseful about the rest either. He flashed something between a grimace and a smile. Should have run off with you before. Just quit my job. The kids would have forgotten me before a month passed. No. She inched closer. It wouldn't have fixed anything else. My dad and Phoebe, it would only have worked for you and me, and there's more to us than that. He didn't argue, but turned on his heels to leave. Wait, she lurched after him ungracefully. Could you do me one more favour? For my father, actually. I think you might be able to help. One last time, Paul's hand circled around her cheek, then brushed back through her hair. She'd forgotten to pull it up before rushing to cover the shift. I hope I can, Angel. After that, Lydia slipped into Alice's room. She couldn't face checking pressure sores yet. Hello, lovey. Alice's eyes fluttered sleepily. My blue lady. Hello, Alice. Want some more juice? The old woman perked up, then steered back from the straw Lydia proffered. What's wrong? I'm all right. Lydia set the cup down and pressed her thumbs under her eyes, trying to barricade the tears in. Nonsense. Alice's cold hand found Lydia's knee. The hand was so frail, the blue of Lydia's uniform seemed to shine through it. Tell the truth now. I've had to say goodbye to a gentleman of whom I was very fond, Lydia stuttered. It must break some kind of ethics code, confiding in someone dependent on her care. But Alice smiled, relishing the role. Ah, never mind, lovey. I know all about men. Being a dancer, you know. Let them come and go. Now and then you find one worth answering the door for. My postman. Now he's something. Nothing like those power-hungry mama's boys on stage. Is that why you're always asking after the postman? Of course, Alice chuckled. So unpretentious, and those legs. Right. I suppose, yes, delivering post would be quite a workout. What happened? You didn't marry him? Alice laid back and closed her eyes again, still smiling. He is married, but he always comes back to see me. Every day? Still? Of course, I've made sure he'll never forget. Lydia left Alice to her daydreams. She and Paul would be together again, even if it were when she was old and mad. Something to look forward to, as her parents would one day surely be reunited at their pub's fireside. What ho, nurse? Ronald greeted her. As usual, he had Ethel and Lottie in tow, with Matt and Anna behind carrying laundry and rubbish from Mrs. Jocelyn's room. Good evening, Ronald. Lydia leaned against the wall and watched them advance painstakingly behind thudding Zimmer frames. The carers easily overtook, then slowed. You look different, Anna told Lydia. I may have achieved some closure. Matt nodded. An elusive beast, and not the cuddliest of creatures. You know what you have to do next, don't you? Asked Anna. Please don't let it involve bodily fluids. No, I mean, the exchange of certain bodily fluids can help recover from any setback. But I was going to advise you, next time make sure you find someone who meets certain standards of impeccable taste. Anna pointed to Ronald with a flourish of her bin bag. He should be a snappy dresser, for instance, like this fine chappie here. Ronald beamed. His suit today was accentuated by sunglasses and a green silk handkerchief. Care to join us for an evening constitutional along the corridors, nurse? Oh, do, murmured Lottie. She's coming along, boomed Ethel, or I shall take my walking stick to her. Lydia fell obediently in step. Tell me, would any of you sophisticated people be interested in having your portraits done? There's a very talented young artist whom I think you should meet. That's the end of chapter 26.